Hey YouTube community, it's me, Dark Nadia. I'm here to just basically share a little bit insight as to who that I am and when my astral projection, lucid dreaming experiences occurred. I always knew something was different with me ever since I was probably about 5 years old. When I was around that age, that's when I noticed that I had the gift to see things that wasn't really there in the third dimension or the people that was around me. But I've always been somewhat psychic sensitive and always had this memories that didn't come from this incarnation of existence, but I knew they had to be from basically either my past lives or soul ties or something along the sorts. It's like I know right now I could just speak offhand. My earliest memory is when I was actually about 3 to 4 months old. I remember having apple juice for the first time. I was born in January of '84. And I knew it was summer because I remember it being really, really hot. I remember my grandmother fanning me, and I remember her, I guess trying to put a bottle in my mouth, but I remember sucking on it and throwing it down. And I remember her putting it in her mouth and biting the nipple, kind of, and was like, oh, this baby's burning up. She's hot. And I remember it was apple juice because I've never had it before, and it was really, really yummy to me. But, yeah. That was one of my earliest memories. I also remember around Christmas time, walking for the first time. I had to be about 11 months because I remember seeing the Christmas tree up. And my birthday's, like I said, in January, so I knew it had to be that December, right before my first birthday. And I remember walking, and I remember my mom being there. I remember my auntie Nat being there, my grandmother, and a few other people. And they were just like, come on, come to me. And I remember basically just walking and falling down, walking and falling down. But what has inspired me to walk was the Christmas tree. And it was crazy because people told me, my mom, ain't no way you could remember that walking. And she hardly remembered. But then when I told her, I said, yeah, it was around Christmas time. I was walking towards the Christmas tree. So she's like, oh, my God, how do you remember that? And basically I was telling her there's a lot of things that I remember that most people don't think I should remember, even when it came down to the apple juice story. And, of course, my grandmother's older. She kind of forgot all about it, but when I had told her about it, she was like, you know what? That was true. She said you were really, really sick and you had a fever. And it was summer and you was burning hot and your mom breastfed you. But I told her to give you to me because she had air conditioning in her room. And she said she had gave me a bottle of apple juice, and the nipple, I don't know, was probably brand new or something like that. I don't know how nipples were made in the 80s, but I remember she had told me that she did bite a hole into it, basically, so that I was able to drink the juice. And that was the first time I had apple juice. And I don't know, just my whole life I've always had a long, long memory. And I remember things I shouldn't remember. I remember when I was just a little kid, I was able to have, how would I put this, visions of a past life. And I was telling my grandmother, we wasn't always here in America. And she was like, what do you mean you wasn't always here? And I told her I remember the pyramids, and I remember sand, and I think it was Egypt or maybe India. But I just most definitely remember living on a different civilization, and we wore really fine jewelry, and it was real gold. And as for some odd reason, I remember walking through the hot sand and the trees all around us. It was very, very beautiful as far as the oceans. And I remember it was a tragic experience for me, when it came to deep water. And it always disturbed me as a child because she would say, you have nothing to fear, you should learn how to swim. And it was just crazy because it was when I remembered the pyramids and the sand and the beautiful trees and wearing gold and being at peace and happiness. I remembered I was always followed around by 5 other women, and I knew in that past life that I was an oracle, that I was a seer, that I was like considered of royalty, a goddess in that dispensation. Like people always came to me, the elders, and to these group of women who served under me, who was able to decipher visions and dreams. And then, I don't know, I remember the first time that I seen a European in this vision of mine. And I was, like I said, I was about 4 or 5, and I woke up really terrified because I told my grandmother that I was taken out of, it was like a castle, you know what I'm saying? To me, it was a castle. At that age, I can't say now really what it was, but I knew, like, if I was considered to be a goddess, in which I was, and I had my own handmaidens and oracles, I guess I was taken, and not just me, but the women who followed me. I remember us just being taken, and that's when we were being led to walk barefoot through the hot sand, and we were stripped naked. And I remember in the vision, like, that I had, that the people were of European descent, and I remember being, like, taken upon this boat, and I remember, like, being thrown over edge. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm gonna tear up. And it's crazy because it's always like, I remember being murdered, you know, like, I don't know. I think in my vision, like, I was this man, and he was European, and he desired me. And it was something I wouldn't do. Maybe I wouldn't submit to him, or maybe I wouldn't give him readings or my land, or maybe they had already conquered and invading our land and was just taking me here. But I told my grandmother that I remember being thrown into the water, and I ended up drowning, you know. And I wasn't alone. And it was the people that was with me, and she was telling me, Maisha, and because that's my real name, she was like, there's no way that actually happened to you. You don't remember anything like that. Maybe it was just a bad dream. And I was, like I said, I was about 4 or 5. I've never watched, like, a slavery movie, or at that time, you know, like, I didn't go to church just yet or anything. So I knew that I had, like, past lives, and I knew it was somewhere. Like I said, it was in India. It had to be India because it was right by Egypt and all the pyramids. And I knew it had to have been like 1300 BC, like, because I know Christianity wasn't around yet, nor was it anything that they considered the modern day Christ. He wasn't around yet. But I remember back then they had God and goddess worship, you know what I'm saying, where they had the Holy Mother. And the Divine Trinity was the Father, the Son, and the Mother, you know what I'm saying, of the Father, the Mother, and the child. And the women in the society was revered. We never really had any oppression, or there was no need for equal rights or feminism, because, you know, that don't really exist in our culture. The woman was always revered. And I remember being an herbalist, you know, and that was just one of my earliest memories of my past lives that I had. That was always kind of like traumatic whenever I thought about it or talked about it, you know. And I also remember when I was about 5, I used to see things from other dimensions come through the mirrors. They would wake me up and they would talk to me. Some wasn't the best, you know. And I was kind of terrified because I was young, and in my mind, you know, I thought it was the devil, because as he came and he woke me up out of my sleep, he told me I'll be a great and powerful woman one day, and that I could never escape him. And he told me that he would use my gifts and my talents. So it always hindered me from being a part of this world, because I always thought of me having my gifts, it would go into the wrong hands. And I think I kind of felt that way as far as, like they said, as far as me, my perception of it being the devil, because of the ingredients. It resonates with my past life that I remember being taken from my home, and me not giving my power unto this man who wanted me to, and him casting me overboard with all my handmaidens and oracles. So I don't know why I'm starting to remember so much about my past life now in this dispensation, and sorry as far as the tears. It's always been a touchy subject. I've always been psychic sensitive. I've always been a truth seeker. I've never been the type of person who would tell lies. Ever since I was a little child, I would stand up for what was true and what's right. Even if I had to get whooped or chastised, I just would tell the truth anyway. and I was never afraid of consequences, you know, because I would rather